Look, I don't care how difficult it is to find them and how expensive they are. We need more of those antimatter power cells, so get back out there and find them. Yes, check even Yanari black market if necessary. The Council is not only funding this project, but they're also willing to turn a blind eye as to the origin of the materials we use. So just try and find them, understood? Dr. Pilar, good to see you. Having supply problems? Ah, Chancellor Spinaka. No, everything is fine. I was just talking to myself. Of course, but there's no need to worry about it. As you said, right now it does not matter where you take your materials from, as long as you can use them to finish this weapon. But do try and avoid being embroiled in slave trade while you're at it. Of course, sir. Again, apologies for the misunderstanding, but weren't you supposed to come visit us in 2 days? Did something unexpected happen? Is the project in danger? Not really, Doctor, but unfortunately old military habits die hard. If you tell soldiers that you will be visiting their company on, say, Monday, then they will spend entire Sunday to make the entire battalion crystal clear. And that's okay if you want to see parade troops, but if you want to see real soldiers, you come along on Saturday when they least expect you. I see. I would say that it was not necessary in this case, but in truth we do have a cleaning company ordered for tomorrow. Recall them. At this point, with so many of these blasted invaders around, I could not care less about posturing, at least as long as you and your people get the job done. And speaking of, how goes the project? It's a mixed bag, Mr. Chancellor. Some parts are already finished, but others are so complex and time-consuming that, even with caretaker blueprints, preparing them will take years, maybe even up to a decade, especially if our logistical problems are not resolved. Understood. I'll see what I can do with the Council, but don't hold your breath for additional supplies and people anytime soon, not with that portal still right in the middle of our territory. But still, I'll try to arrange something outside of the government. The arrival of this new visitor group really scared our northern neighbors, so I should be able to get some resources from there. That would be perfect, Mr. Aspinaka. I'll send you the list as soon as we're done here. Do that, and since you mention it, care to show me the part you have already completed? I'm interested to see this weapon with my own eyes, and speaking of, if the weapon itself is finished, then why the hell do we still need so many resources and time to get it into battle? Well, sir, because this is not actually a weapon, at least not in a strict sense. Our weapons operate using energy in order to deliver destructive force to the target, but in this case we suspect it would not work. The portal that we want to close is not a structure or even a material entity. Instead, it is a hole in the very fabric of our reality, so in order to close it, we will have to fundamentally change its quantum position within... Doc, no offense, but I am a soldier. I can see many of my people here, and I'm proud to see that they're just as smart as you are, but I'm not one of them. So, if you would be so kind, please dial down the technobabble a little bit. Alright. Then, in that case, let us look at it differently. Think of the whole universe in a binary spectrum for a while. Things either exist, and their number is 1, or they do not, and their number is 0. And our device is designed to specifically change the value of its target from 1 to 0 in order to, well, to simply remove it from existence. So essentially, you made a gun that fires mathematics at the enemy and they disappear. Doc, now you got me excited. Could we use it against our other enemies? Say, Imperials or Yanaris? Potentially yes, but we would have to seriously recalibrate it, since right now it was designed specifically to target the visitors. Also, even if we did that, firing it at regular enemies would cause more problems than it would solve, which brings me to your second question. The weapon may work as intended already, but it has a serious drawback. Namely, when it's fired at the enemy, it, in very simplified terms, absorbs all of its energy. And that energy needs to be dissipated somewhere, otherwise we'll just blow ourselves up. But transfer of matter and energy in qualities needed to deal considerable damage to our enemies is so unstable that said containment field has to be extremely complex, and that's what we've been working on for these past 2 years. Gotcha. You essentially try to build a giant heatsink in order to keep the Mavgan from overloading. Splendid. Now, sorry for pestering you, but you were supposed to show me that weapon, and instead all we've been doing so far is just standing here looking at the moon. That's no moon, Mr. Aspinaka. That's our weapon. That? But that's... Alright, I suppose we have built larger things in the past, Doctor, but is there any reason for this to be so impractically huge? Indeed it is. As I said, firing this weapon at even smallest Unbidden vessels would generate extensive amounts of unstable matter and energy, something that we have to dissipate. The blueprint mentioned two ways of solving this problem, one that we could not understand, and another that required use of, well, the most efficient matter and energy absorbers in the universe, ones that we can see naturally in some places. Don't be coy with me, dog, just say what you... Wait, no. No, this is a bit beyond me, but if what you said is true, this thing has a black hole inside of it? Nope. It has 3 tiny black holes, all placed in a very specific way to keep themselves equalized at all times. Using just one would simply rip the superstructure apart in a matter of seconds. Okay, and Doctor, since when we can artificially construct them? Ever since we attacked that caretaker station and stole their databanks, Chancellor. We should look for more of them out there. It's a bloody crime they have all this knowledge and just hoarded it for themselves. You know what? I think I agree with you. We'll make that our top priority after we deal with that invasion. Until then, Doc, I'll let you get back to work. Just try to not destroy everything while you're at it, alright? Hello ladies, gentlemen, robots and all in between, and welcome to episode 34 of Second Chance. We return in the aftermath of our unsuccessful attack on Unbidden defensive position in Ilion system, but unlike our previous failed encounter with them, this time the battle was in our favor for almost entire time, at least until enemy reinforcements showed up. So, while we were forced to fall back before we completely destroyed their major base, our retreat was organized and calm, and, in the end, we hit them much harder than they hit us. And, as you can see now, our forces have already returned to the nearest port over Aziren and are undergoing repairs and, more importantly, retrofits. And although these retrofits won't really be anything flashy or powerful, they will still give our forces a serious advantage, because, as we speak, our old wormhole modulators are being replaced with new experimental jump drives that we have taken from the visitor ships. No longer will our vessels need to wait for weeks for a wormhole to open, and no longer we will actually need to build generators in order to travel between systems. Once these upgrades are in place, our entire galaxy will just be a couple jumps away, which will greatly increase our strategic mobility and allow us to move to locations that were previously unavailable to us. Now, granted, using these jump drives comes with a bit of a risk though. Basically speaking, these devices open ship-sized holes in reality, which cannot be good for it, but our researchers under Dr. Poniewski assured us that all risk should be eliminated, or at the very least, almost completely reduced by now. And, in a way, the Unbidden themselves helped us mitigate said risks, because data gathered from their disabled vessels allowed us to figure out how to use these drives without jumping right into their universe in the process. So, overall, we can now respond to enemy attacks much faster, which is always useful, and conduct our own offensive operations faster and cheaper, all thanks to our guests from another reality. Additionally, while our navy was licking its wounds, an interesting message came to us from the west. After years of indecisive fighting, the Idiots' War has finally came to an end, with Thadrakas-led Celestial Alliance being its theoretical victors. Theoretical, because all that this war gained them was a single planet, the capital world of Fenhalor, claimed by Thadrakas' puppet state, the Zaska's Holy Empire. Aside from that, the only decisive effect of this war were concessions of some frontier Sundrithan systems, but other than that, nothing. So, while in theory the Celestials have won, in the end they actually came out a bit worse, because while the Zaskas have doubled the size of their territory, their Thadrakas masters have lost 2 of their own worlds to the rebels, including their very own capital, pillaged and plundered by both rebellious slaves and foreign mercenaries alike. But all that is secondary right now, because together with that message from the west, we received another one from the north. Some of the more sympathetic Utkavongos informed us that a massive armada of Orange Unbidden has been spotted moving to the north, a normal occurrence, or at least it seems so at a glance. because the size of this fleet is much larger than usual, and it fits only one that we have seen before, the massive defensive battle group that these visitors have deployed right next to their portal. It looks like the arrival of these new green invaders have completely stirred other visitor groups, and, if our senses are correct, it appears that the ones closest to us are charging straight at the system where the green ones appeared in, possibly to destroy their portal. Which probably means several things. For one, our theory about these portal-bound armadas keeping watch for anything that might come from other side seems to be correct, because they stopped guarding their gateways as soon as this third group showed up. And second, something that our researchers theorized about before, it seems that the visitors are no longer a unified group that they were before, and that the first two that arrived here were probably just trying to escape the green ones. Now, what this means for us in the long run is a mystery, but in the short term it means one extremely important thing. The Orange Gateway is open to attack. Granted, it is still protected by some of the visitor stations, but we should be able to deal with them as soon as Manticore and Archon are back in action. And as we waited for the shipyard above Aziren to finish all retrofits, we received even more news. And, as insane as it may sound, it looks like we actually owe our thanks to this new visitor group, because they have completely destroyed the original blue ones, including their gateway. Now, we have already seen that these new arrivals are far more powerful than original 2 invasion forces, but no one expected that they would just charge in and mob the blue ones right up from the start. Not that we're going to complain about it though, because now we have one less portal to deal with in the future, but of course there is a downside to all this. If the Green Unbidden are so powerful that they can destroy one of those defensive armadas practically without stopping, then they will have no trouble destroying anything we could throw at them. At the very least, they are far away, so with a bit of luck we will have more time to prepare now. Now, all these news mean that we are going to have to alter our strategy for a while. As was said, when we realized that the orange portal is unprotected, the first idea was to go for it as soon as possible and try to destroy it before its defenders return. But, considering just how quickly the situation changed in the north, we are going to abort this plan. For one, if we are aware of the situation, then there is a good chance that the orange visitors are too, and are currently speeding back to protect their entryway. And even if they're not, then the green ones are bound to show up as well, and while they may be hostile to other Unbidden, there is no doubt that they will also fight us if they'll find us there. So instead, we'll leave the portal alone, which may mean more enemy reinforcements, and go for Alien System once again, if only to give our people an easy victory to raise their morale. Not only that, this will give us a chance to perform a stress test of our jump drives, because not only we'll use them in a massive numbers here, since unlike wormholes each ship has its own individual drive, but we'll also be jumping straight into enemy position that can seriously disrupt them. So, a bit dangerous test maneuver to be sure, but we're going to have to perform it sooner rather than later, and fortunately, it looks like everything went perfectly well. Now, we still need to wait for a few days in order to calibrate and charge all these new engines, but waiting times are nowhere near as long as before. With wormholes, Manticores sometimes had to wait for well over a month before they could jump anywhere, and now this time has been cut to around a week. We really have to thank the Unbidden for bringing this technology right to our doorstep. And with the test jump complete, it's time for our navy to fight enemy fortifications once again, but, as was said, this is not going to be a difficult fight. We were redirected right into enemy kill zone once again, true, but we have managed to destroy half of their position last time we were here, so now our job will be that much easier, especially since we are much stronger because aside from our jump drives, our ships were also outfitted with our brand new Gauss cannons. And as we know from our previous battle, these guns performed exceptionally well on CSV Archon, so having entire Manticore using them will only make it easier. Easier, but unfortunately not much faster. As soon as we entered the system, Admiral Ibrahim ordered her force to fire long-range weapons like missiles and disruptors at the more distant station, while the majority of the guns focused down the main fortress. As we know though, said fortress is more resilient than anything we have ever seen, so even that masked barrage that could turn an entire planet into dust in a matter of minutes was barely enough to scratch the surface. But unimpressive as they are, our attacks were still able to deal some damage to this odd pillar station, and that is all we need right now. All we have to do then is to hold our position, keep firing, and eventually we are going to win this fight. Of course, the enemy is shooting back, but it's the same situation that often happened to our Merit citadels in the past few years. Yes, the enemy fortress is extremely powerful and could easily destroy any one of our ships, but with so many of them around, it's almost impossible for the Unbidden to focus anything down. Even if one of our ships gets too badly damaged, it can always just fall back to the second line, hide behind our battleships, and let emergency crews from our support cruisers patch it up. Aside from that, just like with the visitor fleets, our strikecraft pilots are going to have a field day here, since our foes have nothing they could target our fighters and bombers with, giving our flyers an opportunity to perfectly line up every single attack. And, slowly but surely, we managed to grind enemy defenses down. First, we destroyed that smaller station that disrupted our engines, although destroyed is not really the best word, as it kinda just evaporated away once we destroyed anchors that kept it in our reality. And the reason why we focused that smaller one first was because, after a while, the visitors realized our strategy here, and instead of trying to take down our smaller vessels, focused all their attention on CSV Archon, which, by this time, suffered some serious damage. However, with the disruptor station gone, Admiral Franz of Purple was able to simply retreat, which means that all that damage our enemies caused was for nothing. Not that it really matters at this point. With fortress shields completely broken, our barrage could finally hit it with its full power, and finally, almost 24 hours after the Battle of Ilion began, Task Force Manticore stood victorious, watching as the massive, powerful Unbidden station slowly vanish into nothingness, leaving behind only a handful of destroyed anchors. We have won. The Unbidden sneaked these defenses right into the middle of our territory, causing chaos and disrupting our operations, and for a long time it looked like we would not be able to remove these fortifications without serious losses. But the arrival of green visitors changed everything, and enabled us to fight without fear of hostile reinforcements approaching, and, in the end, when the second Battle of Ilion was over, it turned out that we have achieved a victory without losing even a single one of our vessels. Granted, Manticore was roughed up quite a lot in this fight and Archon was seriously damaged, but that doesn't change the fact that we have attacked the Unbidden, destroyed them, and our ship losses are non-existent. That truly was a victory we needed right now, and our people can immediately start working to rebuild the infrastructure we lost in these systems, while Manticore can return home in glory and celebrate another heroic victory. More than that, our science teams can now safely go and research what little remains of visitor stations, hopefully gaining us even more knowledge in the process. It looks like, slowly, our Commonwealth is turning things around, but victory or not, we cannot drop our guard, because we still haven't seen everything these invaders are capable of. Also, it seems that there is another green-colored power on the rise, this time in the west, the newly born Thrakus Star Union. When they appeared for the first time, no one in the galaxy really paid too much attention to these rebellious slaves, as everyone expected Thrakus families to simply crack down on them and bring them back in line in a matter of months. Except, quite clearly, they failed, and not just in restoring their rule, but also in containing the rebellion, which has, by now, claimed yet another third planet called Visumat, which is yet another one of Thrakus' core planets. So not only is this yet another defeat for the families, the rebels themselves are now slowly but surely gaining strength required to defend themselves and, in the process, start to look like an actual nation. Granted, said nation has its troubles, and as all revolutions it is currently chaotic and unstable, but given time, they should be able to organize themselves. Question is whether or not they have that time. With Idiot Wars over, the families can now use their full might against these upstart slaves, assuming, of course, that they're not afraid that while their attention is focused on the Union, other slaves might rise somewhere else and attack them from behind. Overall, it's a precarious situation for all sides, and we will surely keep an eye on it, and with a bit of luck, we could find a way to convince at least one side to help us save this wretched galaxy. Thing is, it looks like its current saviors are the Green Unbidden themselves, because, as you can see, their forces have just arrived in our former Kazoo system and are engaging their orange counterparts. And it is a complete one-sided slaughter. Not only the new invaders have more powerful fleets, they also have more of them, and the battle swings in their favor almost instantly. What's worse for the orange visitors, it looks like this massive armada they sent to the north must have been completely annihilated out there, because all that stands between the newcomers and the portal is just a handful of badly damaged vessels. And speaking of which, it looks like it's the same force that decimated our forces during our first fight with them, so at least there is some poetic justice to the whole situation, as now they are the ones outnumbered, outgunned, and desperately trying to stay alive. But, as you might expect, they don't. The power of Green Invaders is simply too much, and within few hours they remove all opposition, and then they do something we have not expected. Despite the fact that their fleets have a clear shot at the gateway, they instead focused their fire on the neighboring stations. Now, Kazoo system is in the middle of our territory, so we can easily monitor what's happening there, and at this moment our observers were completely confused. After all, more enemy reinforcements could arrive at any moment, but it is only when the last of the massive pillar stations is destroyed when we realize what's going on. In the exact same moment when it collapsed, the station sent off some sort of energy pulse, a harmless one, towards the portal. When we destroyed the one in Ilion, it did the exact same thing, but we simply assumed that this was some form of communication or a call for reinforcements or a final report. But now we know the truth. Just like Unbidden ships need anchors to keep them in our reality, so does their gateway. And once those anchor stations are removed, the portal itself becomes unstable and vulnerable to attacks. And that is exactly what the Green Unbidden are doing right now, firing every single one of their energy beams at it. So, in a way, we help them out. If not for our attack on Ilion, there would still be one orange anchor left, and their portal would remain stable. But because we took it down, there is nothing to prevent the Green Invaders from attacking it, and after a few hours of relentless barrage it finally goes down, collapsing in on itself and vanishing into nothingness, just like other Unbidden in our world. There is still one station left in the system, one that confusingly looks like yet another anchor, but of a different color, but other than that, well, that's it for the orange visitors. After a few years of rampaging through our systems, they were taken down, but not by us, but by their own kin, and now, instead of 3 invading forces, we have just 1. Which, when you think about it, may actually be more of a bad thing than we expected. Until now, this war between various Unbidden factions was the main source of damage to their fleet. Sure, we pitched in here and there, but most of the damage they suffered they caused to each other. But now that is no longer the case, and the Green Visitors are free to do whatever they wish here in our small galaxy. Now, for the time being we are lucky. After they dealt with that last station, their forces returned to the north without causing us any trouble, but there is no doubt that they will return. At the very least, we have gained some more time and breathing room, a small thing, but certainly a welcome one. For the first time in years, our systems are not in any direct danger, and though it's obvious that this crisis is far from over, we can finally allow citizens of the Commonwealth to rest for a while, rebuild some of the lost infrastructure, and turn our attention to matters other than military ones. Mostly, at the very least, because while our population celebrated, ironically, Unbidden victory and defeat, and our industrialists resumed their more civil-oriented projects, our research teams continued to sift through what little remained of Unbidden forces, searching for anything that could help us further down the line. But the results were above anything we expected. There were dozens of disabled visitor vessels out there that we could research, and with such abundance our scientists could use a bit more risky method of experimentation, without fear of damaging or destroying precious samples, because there would always be more of them. And that allowed our Science Council field teams to, essentially, replicate Unbidden disintegrator technology out there in the void without bringing it back into our planetary laboratories, and as soon as they did, our High Command was beyond itself with excitement. Such powerful technology would surely be a key to our victory, except, unfortunately, it wasn't. For one, disintegrator beams that we were able to replicate were rather weak when compared to Unbidden ones. We could make them stronger, but even those weaker versions turn out to be extremely difficult to operate, as they required immense amounts of energy to power them, and as such could be mounted only on the largest of our warships. Fortunately for us, our shipwrights were hard at work trying to improve our vessels and found a solution. A new, experimental model of a battleship, Ortus class, designed specifically to house our most advanced weaponry. Not only we could mount those disintegrators on it, the ship itself was built around two powerful railguns that went through almost entire length of the vessel and could deliver overwhelming barrage at anything in front of it. It had a bit less in terms of regular weapons than our old Poniatowski model, but its overall firepower is still much greater, although, due to the nature of its two main guns, also a bit more situational. As we know, the majority of our ships use turreted weapons that enable them to attack targets in all directions, but those mega railguns we mounted on Ortus battleship can only fire forward, which means that the ship has to keep its distance and, ideally, remain stationary while firing, something that is kind of against our regular tactics of wide flanking maneuvers. So, Admiral Ibrahim and her officers will now have to factor these new vessels into our new plans, because having powerful weapons is one thing, you still have to know how to employ them. But all that pales in comparison to our greatest project so far. In late June 2325, high-ranking members of the Science Council and the Parliament itself received invitation from Chancellor Aspinaka. Invitation, oddly, to an industrially focused Obshola system, a place that no one who is not looking to cheaply buy hundreds of tons of Durantium steel really visits. But as our leadership arrived in the system, they were surprised to see quite significant cordon of Phalanx patrol ships, and in the middle of them, next to the central star itself, was something that surpassed their wildest expectations. Ladies and gentlemen of the Commonwealth, I'd like to raise a toast to our best and brightest for completing this magnificent project despite all the chaos around us. And while we're at it, I suppose we could also raise one to our new green visitors. Their services in removing enemy portal from our territory are greatly appreciated, but now, if they would be so kind as to bugger off and never return, everything would be just perfect. Ah well, it was worth a try. Still, let us not sour this occasion with news from the north, for today is a joyous day. A day on which we celebrate years of our hard work that finally culminated in the station that you see behind me. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you our Sentry Array. I give you the galaxy. Dr. Poniewski, you may do the honors. Got it. Engineering reports all clear, the reactors are stable and the array is about to be turned on now. There it is. I have green reports all across the board. Our eyes and ears are finally open. That they are, Doctor. That they are. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, this station grants us overview not only of our neighboring systems, but of our entire galaxy, and even enables us to look into the void beyond it. From our very own core territories to the farthest reaches of our galaxy, we can now observe every single event unfolding in real time and act accordingly to the situation. Now, the benefits of such knowledge are too numerous to list here, but given our current situation, I think we can safely focus on military matters first. As you can see, the station has already scanned the galaxy and placed every single ship, from small civilian freighters to massive battleships, on the screen and arranged them accordingly. In the green, you can see our own vessels, in yellow, those that pose us no threats, and in red, as you might expect, those that we really should keep our eye on. If you look at the top, you will see Unbidden armadas rampaging through this territory, and further in the west we have Imperial... Wait, Doctor, have you seen what I just saw? The screen is quite cluttered with icons, Chancellor. Care to be more specific? Aye, there was a red dot close to the middle of galactic core. It's gone now, but... Oh, there it is again. And it vanished. Do we have some malfunction on our heads? Not that I know of, but then again, the station was not calibrated with galactic core in mind. The sheer amount of stars and black holes there makes it impossible to even get close to the area, let alone venture there. We plan to gradually improve the station to enable us to look there, but it will take time. But I'm sure it was just some random interference. As I said, our galactic core is a mess. I would like to believe it, Doctor. Still, is there really no way for us to take a look there? Not even for a while? Well, I could recalibrate some of the sensors that monitor other areas and focus them there, but do it. Focus everything there if you can, alright? Just trust me on this. As you wish. Realigning the array now. Done. Odd. There really is something there, and it looks like it's moving. Aye, and it looks like it's coming our way. Ladies and gentlemen, my apologies, but I fear this presentation will have to be cut short. It seems that we have Imperial invasion to prepare for. Imperial? Don't you think the Unbidden are more probable suspects, especially in a place like that? No, the Unbidden only venture into places where they can find life to feed on, not to mention that the vector on the screen clearly shows that this formation is coming from the Empire. But that's not possible. No warship would be sturdy enough to survive there. Remember that time when we thought that it was impossible for the Zrakan to summon their god, Doctor? I don't think this galaxy knows the term impossible. Doc, I need you to evacuate as well. Security, patch me through to Manticore. Looks like we'll have to test our weapons sooner rather than later. The Commonwealth is watching you. Finally, after many long years, the construction of our sentry array is finished, and our galaxy no longer hides any secrets from us. Or, at the very least, any large-scale ones. This technology is powerful, sure, but it won't really allow us to monitor individual people. But its usefulness is still impossible to understate. Every time someone in the galaxy will try to move a fleet, we will know it. Every time someone in the galaxy will colonize a planet, we will know it. All the dangers, all the crises, all around our small cluster of stars will be visible from us from the very beginning, giving us a chance to prepare and react accordingly should they pose any kind of danger to our people. And on a less military-focused note, it also means that we, essentially, have explored our entire galaxy without the need to actually go out there, often into hostile territories. Places that would be completely out of our reach just a few days ago, like Shizri, Dis, or even Imperial systems on the other side of the galaxy, are now laid bare before our eyes, something that our researchers could only dream about before. Of course, we will have to keep this base a secret, because there is a good chance that the more isolationist civilizations, like our Shizri neighbors, would not be too happy about it, but that's the greatest part of this whole affair. Should they realize its presence and decide to take steps to destroy it, we will know about it. Plus, with Unbidden invasion in place, we probably should not worry, so let us take a look at some of the things our sentry array allowed us to see. The most interesting to us, as humans, is of course the new Sol system, home of the Eternal Empire. And as we can see, our brothers and sisters from Earth were far more lucky when it comes to their new home, because aside from New Earth, which seems to be a lush tropical world, they also have a regular continental one, and surprisingly, a paradise world, which means that their civilization, unlike ours, could expand to other planets before developing means of interstellar travel, so no wonder they're as powerful as they are. Aside from that, we can also take a closer look at our longtime rivals, the Zrakan Tribunal. They mostly got under the radar after sacrificing almost entirety of their nation to the light, and so far managed to avoid all attacks aimed at them. And now, finally, we can see why. As you may remember, the one Zrakan Tribune we sent on a long, lone journey to another galaxy mentioned something about them now being protected by some kind of a guardian, and at first we believed it to be some kind of a bluff or another religious nonsense, but now we see that they were dead serious, because their new home system, aside from sporting a beautiful paradise planet, is also home to an extremely powerful entity that, if readings from our array are correct, could easily take our Wraith on one-on-one. But, powerful as it looks, it seems that it's not just a guardian, because while the Zrakan claim to have been rewarded by the light, we can now also see that there is absolutely nothing out there in terms of actual space infrastructure. So perhaps this creature, which we started calling a dragon, is just as much of a guardian as it is a warden that ensures that Zrakan remnants will stay where they are. So overall, our sentry array allows us to keep tabs on all these mysterious anomalies within our galaxy, like, for instance, that mysterious series of strongholds or a massive lone battleship in Mirovandian space. or that nightmarish being living on the fringes of a black hole in Shalani territory, and finally, the one we have observed for the longest time, a bizarre squid-like creature made out of energy that seems to be feeding off the energy of a star in Ali territory. There is no denying that our galaxy holds many wonders and things that defy all kinds of explanation. Shame though that most of these wonders appear to be hostile. But then again, by now we are used to it. If we actually met some kind of a peaceful entity out there, now that truly would be a surprise. But unfortunately, there are other things we can also see, and they are far more important to our short-term safety. Because, on almost the completely opposite end of our galaxy, we have uncovered something highly dangerous, a massive Imperial station hidden in the shadow of a gas giant in a black hole. But this is not just any station. For one, all readings indicate that it was not constructed by the Empire, which means that it is probably a remnant from either the caretakers or one of the civilizations that lived here before. But whatever its origin, it's clear that it is one of the main sources of Imperial power. The sheer amount of traffic to and from this station clearly indicates its importance, but now that we can actually see it, we also realize that it continuously emanates some kind of disruption signal, which, as we can now tell, is responsible for Imperial ability to mask themselves so perfectly. But while we were able to understand their advantage, we did so too late, and as you can see, we already fell victim to its power. Because while we assumed that it would be impossible for Imperial forces to reach us, they somehow managed to sneak right through the very center of the galaxy, which we thought to be an impossible task. More than that, their station masked their approach so well that we only managed to uncover them when they were right inside our own territory in former Yadran system of Krakow. And to make it even worse, the armada they sent against us is unlike anything we have ever seen, numbering over 300 warships, with more than a half of them being capital ships. Hell, they even have over 30 battleships compared to our 10, and the amount of carriers in their fleet is enough to send a cold shiver down spines of all of our pilots. And then there is absolute ton of cruisers, battle cruisers, support ships, and an overwhelming cloud of smaller escort vessels, something that we lack almost completely after losing all of them in Mazaka system. But there is a bit of a silver lining there. While Imperial ships surely are numerous, they are clearly not as advanced as our forces, which gives us some leverage there. Granted, we have learned in our previous battles, especially against the Billy ones, that our superior technology can easily be countered by bringing more guns to the fight, and we can easily assume that we're going to have thousands more weapons firing at us than we can fire ourselves. So our warships will have to perform some truly epic maneuvers if they don't want to be focused down and torn to shreds. But there is far more important advantage that we have right now. Imperial Navy might have entered our territory without us noticing, but now that we can see them, intercepting their orders was a piece of cake. And because of that, we know their objective. The Sovereign Armada is going for our home, for Ortus itself, and apparently their orders are to commence full unrestricted planetary bombardment of our world in preparation for an invasion force that follows it. So, not really good news as you might expect, but in an odd twist, it's actually perfect news. Because, assuming they will follow their orders to the letter, we now know where and how they will approach us, so we can prepare accordingly. And while in theory we could send Manticore out there to meet them in the middle, the High Command decided to allow Imperial forces to reach our home system. Not only Asha is the best defended place within the Commonwealth, allowing our forces to go all the way there means that we'll have more time to prepare ourselves. And we must really haul ass here, because while our forces may be stronger on paper, they still have several critical weaknesses, most importantly our complete lack of escort ships. So while it would be nice to build a few more battleships in order to reduce difference between our forces, the more pragmatic move is to deploy as many fresh corvettes as we possibly can. And fortunately this is far easier than it ever was right now. Not only are people managed to rest for a few months, but with all technological advances, and, well, the fact that we have enemies rushing straight for our home, our dockyards can now build new ships faster than ever, and building a torpedo corvette now only takes about 2 weeks, or 11 days in case of Curaçao, and because it will take Imperials at least 2 or 3 more months to get to us, we can reinforce our navy rather significantly. We will also recall Lynn's Task Force Eagle and merge it back with Manticore, for several reasons that will become clear in the future. What it means though is that Admiral Lynn is once again going to step down from command position and return to the surface of Ortus at the request of Chancellor Aspinaca, because he needs Lynn to help him develop a plan that would prevent our foes from causing harm to our people. Now, this plan involves several things, some of them top secret, some of them not, but one of the most important parts of it are of course our stationary defenses. The idea is to, once again, allow our foes to jump right into our kill zone and focus on one of our defensive stations, while our fleet will walk as fast as possible to reduce the number of enemy guns. And, for the first time since wars back on old Earth, we are going to use another form of static defense, minefields. As you can see, some of our defensive platforms have deployed clouds of automated homing mines that will detect enemy warships and fly right at them. It may not be the most sophisticated idea, true, and it certainly won't win us this fight, but every little bit helps. After all, if our foes are busy dodging mines, they will spend a bit less time aiming at us. But all of this is just a delaying tactics, because the main part of our operation here will not be in space, but on the surface of Ortus, where a special group of people has been gathered. People who, for a long time, were excluded from our society and treated with mistrust and prejudice. Their status has been reinstated now, but our people still mostly do not trust them. But if this plan works out, then they will finally truly redeem themselves, so let us hope that Aspinaca's mad idea will turn out to be a good one. And now we will see if it is. Our defensive position is as ready as it could be, Manticore has been reinforced with additional corvettes, and on Ortus, the secret part of our plan is ready to be put into play. And just in time, because Imperial Sovereign Armada is already upon us, and as you can see, their arrival surely is a menacing one. The swarm of ships that appeared in our system is so large that even our advanced sensors have trouble keeping track of all of them. And, as they arrive, there is not even a second of peace, and their guns open fire at everything in sight, filling space with endless tons of ammunition, missiles, and countless energy beams. More worryingly, it looks like our foes came ready to counter our main advantage, strikecraft, because as you can see out there, their fleet is covered by hundreds of flak cannons that don't really fire at anything specific, but just place a deadly blockade that our fighters and bombers will now have to fly through. And that's not the end of bad news for our pilots, because just like our fleet is full of various point defense weapons, so is Imperial one, and some of our strikecraft are knocked out of the sky almost as soon as they leave their hangar bays. Those that survive long-range PD guns are met in the middle of the field by a cloud of Imperial fighters, and soon there is a massive dogfight between two fleets. And then, only then, once they untangle themselves from that mess, they can finally try and commence proper attack runs, only to find themselves targeted by the aforementioned flak cannons. So, unlike our previous fights, this one sees a heavy death toll amongst our pilots almost from the very start, but there is a bit of an upside in this chaos. For one, it quickly becomes evident that our fighters are far superior than Imperial ones, and even our bombers are able to sometimes outfight them, or at the very least survive their attacks. More than that, the enemy can't focus all their PD guns and flak cannons on our strikecraft because they need to deal with our missiles and torpedoes, except unfortunately we have to do exact same thing. Few minutes into the battle, it becomes clear that our fleets are evenly matched. Our warships are superior, but the enemy have far more of them, so if the battle was fought just between our navies, then it would certainly be a difficult one. But we have the advantage of fighting on our own terms. Sure, Imperials are clearly masters of offensive tactics, but we are experts when it comes to defensive maneuvers. And more importantly, we have our defenses that can not only draw a lot of enemy fire, but also provide both offensive and defensive support. Additionally, it seems that Imperial forces focused most of their firepower at our frontal Merit Citadel, understandable since it's the closest target and it also houses a disruptor that reduces the efficiency of their shields. But while they fire at our stronghold, we can take down their ships, and slowly but surely, Manticore starts to reduce enemy numbers, as shots from our advanced weapons crash into less advanced Imperial warships. We even have few of our new Ortus-class battleships firing both Unbidden-based disintegrators and their mega railguns that can completely annihilate Imperial battleships in just 1 or 2 volleys. Soon, the enemy realizes this and transfers more ships to engage our main fleet, but even when they do serious damage to one of our line ships, our vessels can always withdraw behind our fortifications and receive emergency repairs. Even planetary batteries on the surface of Ortus join the fight, their crews fully aware that the fate of our capital world is in their hands. But despite all that, Imperials press on, and soon they too start taking down our ships, and as the space between 2 navies fills with more and more wrecks, Admiral Ibrahim is suddenly overwhelmed with a dreadful realization. There is another dot on her screen, one that says unidentified contacts, and it is getting closer. Got him. Direct hit on the reactor room and another carrier down, ma'am. The bomber crews from Lancer have avenged their mothership. Good. Redirect them to the spaceport. We need them to rearm and get back out there as soon as they can. This battle is far from over. Understood. Heron 1, this is command. Good job out there, lads, but we need you to go for another run. Get back to orbit for fresh power packs as soon as you're able. Alright, on to the next one. I have to admit, ma'am, after fighting the visitors lately, overseeing this battle is a downright pleasure. I sincerely hope you are joking right now, number 1. We may have spent our lives in the military, but we can't forget that wars and battles are just means to an end. If we'll start to actually enjoy them, we'll end up like Yanari or Dis. Of course, ma'am. It was just a figure of speech. Good. Last thing we need right now is even more warmongering fools on the front lines ruining our reputation and our chances for alliance against the Unbidden. Considering what the Shadow Templars did during Thradrakus Revolution, it's a miracle that Celestial Alliance and rebels themselves have not declared a war on us. So the stories about pillaging rebel planets were true? Damn, I thought this was just propaganda. Still, from what I heard, they dealt with this issue themselves. Yes, because Commonwealth officially cut ties with this Merc group. From what I've heard, the Templars, including their commander, were literally drawn, quartered and burned by the rebels. Say what you will about Thradrakus, they do honor their traditions. But enough of that, we have a battle to win. Any news from their secondary group? The last report came in about 5 minutes ago. Miss Tomaszewicz and Miss Skarbek are doing their best, but the opposition they face on Imperial side is way too strong for them. Unless we provide a decisive opening for at least a minute or two, our ground support will not succeed. Then let's give them that opening. Hell, have you identified the enemy flagship? I'm doing my best, Admiral, but their vessels are equipped with extremely powerful signal disruptors. Every time I try to hack into one of them, they randomly bounce my signal around their entire fleet. And it doesn't help that I have to manage our entire navy in the meantime. I deserve a raise after this battle. If you find me that flagship, I'll wire my entire account to you. Also, have you tried other methods besides hacking? Usually, a ship with fleet commander on board acts differently to other ones. Not in this case, boss. Either their commander isn't actually here, or their crew is really good at pretending to be just a regular line ship. Or their admiral is not concerned with their own well-being in this battle, and it looks like we can't track down their orders because of their jammers. Damn it all, keep looking everyone. They will make a mistake eventually, just keep your eyes peeled for... What now? Ma'am, we have more contacts on the sensors. 5 of them, all battleship-sized, moving in towards the battle. Are they our reinforcements? We brought every single ship here, so not likely. Bloody hell, I knew they're fast and crafty, but how they were able to sneak battleships behind our line? Identify them immediately and send word to Archon. I want Purple to hold them off until I figure out how to deal with them. Understood. We already have them on our sensors, but... No, this cannot be right. Scan them again. Damn it. Ma'am, I think Imperials hacked our sensors. What? How can you tell? Because all these ships have the exact same transponder codes that identify them as our lost CSV legacy. Hell, they're even using outdated transmission codes. Are they trying to contact us? But that's... to hell with it. I cannot accept that transmission right now, number 1. That's an order. Aye aye. Channel open. Not enemies, I repeat, we are not enemies. This is CSV Legacy, we're here to provide support. That's Captain Drakovich, is that you? Oh, thank the stars you answered before firing. Yes, Admiral, it's me. I can send my identification code if you want. Do it. All checks out. But before I welcome you back, Captain, I'd like to know why there seems to be 5 copies of your ship out there. That's a long story, I'm afraid. I think psionics are involved, but, ma'am, I honestly don't remember much from our time in the wormhole. We were somewhere else, and we traveled for quite a while to find a way out. And when we finally did, these 4 other ships came with us. And before you ask, yes, they are also captained by me. Well, other versions of me. But regardless, as soon as we realized where we are and what's happening, we rushed here as quickly as we could. We want to help. I'm not going to send off 5 battleships in a situation like that, Captain. Hell, link them up to our fleet and put them on the board. We could use them on the right flank. Also, Captain, you mentioned psionics. Is anyone on board of your ships experienced in these matters? Aye, ma'am. That would be me, I suppose. And my 4 copies. What do you want us to do? I'm going to patch you through to another group of psionic operatives on the surface of Ortus. They can explain things far better than I could. Suffice to say, if we work together with them, we should be able to force this armada to retreat. Then I'll contact them immediately and see how I can be of use. Looks like we picked a good moment to return, Admiral. We'll do our best out there. I know, Captain. Ibrahim out. I bloody knew he was hiding something. Hell, keep some of the guns pointed at these battleships, just in case. As for the rest of you, keep at it. Keep the guns firing and don't take any unnecessary risks. I repeat, if you think you're in too much trouble, fall back and get the support cruisers to patch you up. If our people on the surface are right, then we don't have to take them all down to win here. We just have to neutralize that blasted flagship, so everyone get back on the sensors and find it. Turns out, sometimes that absolute madness of our galaxy can work in our favor, because, as you can see, we now have additional support in form of 5 battleships. Except, well, it is actually 1 battleship, our old CSV Legacy lost during our first failed battle against the Unbidden. Only thing is, as you can see, there's 5 of them, complete and exact copies, together with duplicated crews and all. How exactly that is possible we do not know, but hey, we are not going to turn down additional support, especially in a battle like this one. Sadly though, while this legacy fleet surely is a welcome sight, it still is rather far away, but perhaps they can help with the secret part of our plan, which is actually the best thing they could do right now. Because at this point it's clear to everyone that Imperial force is not going to relent. We may reduce their numbers every minute, but they still have definitive numerical advantage and, right now, started using some of their more damaged vessels as rams, charging straight into our formation, in hopes of causing as much damage as possible. But then, as situation on the front grew more and more dangerous, Admiral Ibrahim received a short message from the surface. Target acquired, it said, commencing attack. For a while, nothing happened and the battle raged on with full intensity, but then, all of a sudden, entire Imperial Armada just stopped firing, hit the brakes, and, few seconds later, performed an emergency evacuation jump. The fiercest, most devoted servants of the Empress have fled, and the first and hopefully last Battle of Asha was over. We are victorious and our home is safe. But the celebrations won't take long, 2 or 3 days at most, and even during that time we will work around the clock to bring Manticore back to full power. Because that was just the first part of our plan. Now, it's time for part 2, and if General Braniski is watching us from somewhere, then it's safe to assume that he would be proud of it. Foolish, foolish, foolish! How could I have been so utterly incompetent? To call a retreat in face of these traitors is a shame enough, but to do so in the presence of her eternal majesty! I'm a disgrace to our people and to this navy. You are too hard on yourself, Lord Admiral. The blame for this retreat lies not with you, but with me, for I have underestimated our enemy once again. I had no idea they too possess the powers of the Shroud. But your highness, surely abilities of these traitors are nothing when compared to yours. Indeed, individually their powers are barely noticeable, but there were many of them out there, and more arrived on the field of battle to tip the scales further. I I admit I lost my focus, Admiral, so as I said, I am responsible for this defeat. I have failed our soldiers. You did everything in your power to deliver us victory. But it was not enough, Your Highness. I should have stayed and fought on. I should have rammed my ships into their corrupted world if need be. Instead, I shamed you, Your Majesty, by fleeing like a coward. There was nothing cowardly in your actions, Lord Admiral. You performed as best as you could in given circumstances, and each death your forces caused was another step towards justice for Eastern traitors. Although I admit that performance of our weapons was less than what I anticipated. But even that does not matter. What matters, Lord Admiral, is that our retreat was successful and we can fight for justice another day. And there will be another day, sooner than any one of us thought. Because, Lord Admiral, while we were forced to retreat, we also forced our enemies to uncover their cards. When their minds invaded my own, they were so overwhelmed by their temporary victory that they dropped their guard, which, in turn, opened their own minds to me. And what little minds they are. So excitable, so easy to read. There are no more secrets they can hide from me. Of course, Your Majesty, so that was your plan all along, to feign weakness in order to gain access to the knowledge. Not precisely, Lord Admiral, but close. But the original plan matters no longer. The important thing is that I know what our enemies are going to do next, and they are going to play right into our hands. They will orchestrate their own destruction. As they should, Your Highness. But pardon me for asking, what about armies that followed us? Without support of the Armada, they will be at the mercy of traitor fleets. So they will, Lord Admiral, but their sacrifice will only further our plan. I can see it now, right in front of my eyes. We will crush their resistance in one swift blow, and we will use the very tool of our foes, treachery, to deliver it. How so, Your Highness? Some of the minds that invaded me were powerful, but also fragile, misguided, confused. Even now I can still sense one of them like it was right next to me. Such pitiful, fractured soul. All it needs, Lord Admiral, is a little push in the right moment. Now all we have to do is prepare for it.